We're back in the demo file and we're going to start part 3 of our lesson on formatting with graphics. Let's hit quick start. As usual, let's go ahead and duplicate our last lesson and turn this into the 5.5 part 3 lesson, where we're going to continue learning about grouping buttons and adding an icon or so. Submit and close this. All right, the first thing we're talking about doing is taking this group of buttons right here and collapsing it into a new button with like a drop-down visualization. So think of it like as a nested button. To do that, we go over to our JS function area, and we're going to have to wrap these buttons in another button. So to do that, it's going to look similar to this. So we're going to paste this nested button around this. So basically it almost looks identical, but we're saying extend this, we're going to extend the collection of buttons, and we're going to give it a name called select period. And I'll just move this extra spacing, but we also need to end this this bracket with the bracket and the notation. And we do that by let's go all the way down to the bottom here. And just to be safe, we want to end this correctly. And I know it's hard without a Visual Studio editor or something like that, but here we are, we're ending it, and then we're ending the nested bracket. So let's go see what that looks like. Okay, so what we basically did is we created a new button and we threw all the rest of the buttons in there. And the way that looks right now is this. Now, there are some other controls you're going to have, like you can make this be 1 or 2 columns or do something like that. But for the video purposes right now, we're going to show this. But if I hit Q1, you notice how it's changing in the background, and that's working. Things are still working. But what I don't love is that this isn't automatically closing when I select that. So one of the easy ways to go do that is go back to our extension of our buttons right here, and we're simply just going to add a feature. So all of this is in the documentation, and it takes a while to learn, but I'm just proving some things that you can do. So when you get into buttons, there's a lot of things that you can actually set, like the width, the class name, and these kind of things. What I'm saying right now is when somebody collects or chooses something, auto close it to be true. And if you didn't like that, just turn this to false. So let's go back and just prove that that works. If I hit Q3, it automatically created that and shut that option down. All quarters, created it and such, set that option down. So I'm kind of liking that. So that's pretty cool. But what I did notice is that my styling, I lost it again. So you see how there's it's kind of big and it's gray. Let's go now change that, because basically what I said, hey, my button group is no longer the button group. So we're gonna well, it is, but it's got too much spacing. I don't need all of that now. So let's go and change the styling on our button group, and let's find out where we put that. And since it's for the report in the table area, it's in this section. So what we're going to do now is basically say, I want to change the padding a little bit. So for purposes of what we're doing here, it's got padding and display inline box, but we don't need that anymore because I only have one button. So let me just paste this and see what we get. I'm changing the inline padding to be small and the top and the bottom to be small. Let's check out that. Okay, that looks pretty good. But this button itself is still large. And from the last lesson, you saw that we could change the style by using a bootstrap class name. But this time we're going to actually create our own class for this button and give it a name and then assign the style to it. So let's go into CSS. And what I want to do here is basically, add a new CSS style to my report, and we'll put it right below here. And I'll show you what I'm doing in here. We're calling the button My Collection. I'm adding the theme color like we learned before to my button color. I'm changing the font to tan, rubato, and adding some padding. So let's go see if that does anything. I haven't seen anything happen yet, but the reason is I haven't assigned that class to that button. So let's go back to our JS function, similar to how we did here, where we said, hey, we're going to use a native bootstrap button. In my new button collection that I called select period, let's go ahead and paste this new reference. So similar to what we've done before, class name, But now I'm referencing my own styled button. Okay, what does that look like? Pretty cool. Like select period is got my color formatting. It's doing pretty good. This inside stuff has not changed yet though. It's got its native buttons going on there, but for purposes of right now, you can change that. It's working fine. I don't mind the way they work here. It's okay. But I think everything else right here is looking pretty good. So we're going to stop right there on that. And we're going to go now and we're actually going to do some conditional formatting on our values. What I don't love, let's just say all months here. Let's go back to that. What I don't love is that these negative signs right here are hard to see. What I want to do is show my user that they should be seeing that in red. And this is just a choice of mine. So what we're going to do right now is go into our column definitions and we're going to write conditional statement to say, if my value is negative, get rid of that and turn it into a red text color. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. We are going to go down to our formatting for this group. And remember, we already have all of our targets identified right here. The first thing we're going to do is actually disable this render function because I want to show you a new one that we're going to do. I'm going to copy in the conditional formatting for a new render function. And we're just going to review that here and let you look at what I'm showing you. So let's move this over a little. Oops, I moved the text out and we'll add some space so we can see it. So we're saying, like up here, it was a shortcut. We're saying render all of this, but this time I'm writing out the render function a little bit differently. I'm declaring a number and I'm saying, hey, render these columns 3 through 14 with this. We're adding a $sign and we're displaying it. And then we're saying, if it's display, let my variable or my color variable be black. And let's replace the number, the hyphen with nothing. But then I also declare if the data is less than 0, which would be the negatives, color it red and return that. So I know this is a little bit hard to understand right now, but let's go see if this render function actually does what we're saying we want it to do. Negative numbers should be in red and no hyphen. Other numbers should be in black. And I'm getting a warning. Okay, that's confusing, right? Well, why is that happening? It did display, but I don't want that warning. This is a major, like, gotcha. So pay attention on this one. Whenever you run a render function and not every value in your table can be rendered, you're going to get that error message. So the trick is that we need to be able to update our code to safeguard against that. So we can see that it's working, but if I were to do any sort, you're going to get that. The user does not want that. I, as a developer, do not want to see that. So how do we fix it? Let's go back down into the area that we just added. So we know the issue comes in here. We just added this render function, and it's basically saying, I can't do it to everything that you have. Something isn't allowing me to evaluate. So the simple thing that we do here is we add, I'll just add it to the top here. We'll put it in this section. We add this word called default content, and we give it a value of just 2 well, not quotes, but like apostrophes. And we're basically saying for everything in this table, the default value is blank. And that just safeguards our calculations so that it doesn't give us that warning. So let's go over to our preview and we see that I didn't get the warning anymore. If I sort by January, I'm still not getting that warning. So we have corrected the issue. So for purposes of your learning and training, if you ever get that little blob of saying, hey, I can't evaluate, something in your data tables is empty or cannot be calculated, go add your default content to be blank, and that should safeguard it. Okay, but I think there's something going on here that's a little repetitive. I don't really think we need to have the $sign in every column. It's pretty obvious that that's going to happen. So let's go back to that render function where we just added it. And we look in here in this section where we said, hey, we want to format the number similar how we did before in that render, but let's just simply take out the $sign and preview that. You can see now that all of the $signs are gone. All right, that's good. I mean, we've kind of cleaned it up. We don't really need to have that repetitive feature. And I'm just allowing you to see how you can change the way your data is displayed. But what happens if we remove that $sign, but we have mixed currencies in our data? So we're going to kind of play with that a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to go do is show you, let's go to our data, and I'm going to find a couple of the US dollars, and I'm going to change it to say, euro. So I'll just find another one, euro. All right. Okay. So I've just changed a few of the values. You can see that euro is here and here. And if I come back to my data, we aren't actually displaying euro. So how would we know to go do that? So for purposes of the demonstration, let's just go turn on the currency so that you guys can see that. And so our currency field is right here. And if I turn this on and submit the changes, we're going to go back and see that we've got euro in a couple of the columns. But I really don't want to display that. What I want to do is I want to show a $sign when it's Europe, a $sign when it's US dollars, and a pound when for Europe. So how do we do that? Okay, this is our first attempt at adding an icon for data. So in our library, we need to actually add the Font Awesome libraries in order to be able to show an icon. So the first thing we do is we go into this area, and in our optional CSS is where we're going to paste this string to say we need to load the Font Awesome libraries. And in this particular version, I'm a little older, so it is particular on what version you're referencing. So if you're trying something on your own, make sure that the icon names match what is in that version of fonts. Okay, nothing's happened yet. We just have this currency field here, and we can still see that Europe and everything is there. But what we're going to go do is we're going to change this currency column, and we're going to render it into an icon. So let's go into our columns, go back to our builder, and down on the currency where it says here, we're going to hit the actual render option, and we're going to type in, or I'm going to paste in the function that you need to be able to render the currency into a symbol. And let's go ahead and put that in there. So we're basically saying, similar to how we kind of did the font, we're saying let the default color be black and the default icon be a $sign. And the currency is the row I'm referencing. And then after that, we're just saying, if my currency does not equal US dollars, then change the color to blue and change the icon to Europe. Then return all of that with the color and the icon in the value. This takes a little bit of time getting used to, but you can use my example or go refer to the internet and find how to do this. But let's go ahead and submit and close this. And what I want to point out too is when we do this, we get that warning again. Okay, it's saying there's not a value. So again, the condition that we wrote, the calculated evaluation, cannot be done on every field. But if I say okay, I still got my actual things working. I got $signs were in black where I wanted them, and the pound sign there. So how do we correct that issue with the currency being displayed or not? Okay, let's go back into a columns builder. And this is where I talked about in the presentation that I added a new field to handle this. So back down under currency, let's go to our render function. And you may have seen this, but there's this new button called add default content. And this needs to be in here in the sense when we use the columns builder, I am not letting you free type into this. So we basically have a new field, and all you need to do is type the 2 simple dashes here, or whatever you wanted to type in there as your default content, and hit submit close. And once we do that and come back, I no longer get that error message. The data is still there. Let's go quick look at our columns and see what that looks like though. Down at the bottom of my currency right here, Do you see how default content was actually added to our JSON there? So that's what the code is doing, is saying, if I didn't have this here, I'm going to get that error message. So by adding that right there, the entire function can render on every row in the database. It's a safety clause. So make sure you understand when you get those issues or errors that this is the saving code line to help you out. Okay. Let's go back and just do a couple things. I don't think we really need to have the word currency on the label. Let's center this, and basically we, might not even know that we need to toggle the visibility on. So let's go quickly, just cosmetically change those things. So under the currency, we do not need a name, so we can remove that. That's the column header name. And let's see, it's position 22. Let's just resequence the list. And actually it moved up here. I don't want it there. Let's resequence the list again. And I think, let's pause it. I want to move that down to the bottom. Okay, so we left our numbers where they were. Let's resequence. And there we go. So we got Q1, 2, like we got them back in the order. Our currency is being rendered, but we're not actually displaying it. So we're coming back, just want to prove that all of those things work. Currency is not displayed and whatnot. But now, how do we actually go about displaying that? So we're going to add another section of buttons here to change some other visibility. So what I want to go back and show you is, if we took the $ off, but we want to show the user what the actual format is, we're going to just add a feature to allow that to happen. So to do that, we are going to come into our JS functions and add another collection. Okay, I'm going to copy the code for that. And we're going to come right into our JS function. And so remember, we have a buttons of this collection. So it's got this, and it's got these buttons in it, but we're right here going to add another set of button collections, and we're going to paste that right here. So what we're saying is we're going to add another collection of buttons, and we're giving it the class name of my collection like we did before. This time its labels is going to be options, and we set the auto close to true. And let's just add a space here. The buttons inside that collection of buttons are, we're going to toggle the business unit. And the code here is basically saying, hide the column or show the column. It's another way to do it like this, but we're basically just saying, do it by one column at a time. And we're also adding a feature, say, show or hide that currency field that we just added. And then we have a feature here for the custom button to say you clicked on a custom button. Okay, let's go look at this. And I think I just missed the way I have my buttons extended here. So let's make sure we've got that in the right format. The error was that I was just missing a comma right after the previous thing that I pasted. So if I come to my preview, and I now see that I have my original column buttons, and I have a new column grouping with the word options. When I hit this, those 3 new buttons I put in there are here. So toggle business unit, when I do this label and I click that, do you notice I hid the business unit column? So if I go back and turn it on, it appears. If I show or hide my currency, you can see that that field comes in over here. Okay, that's looking good. I can toggle that on and off. And then I just showed you how you could add any kind of button right here. So if I hit this custom button, it's basically just giving me an alert. So you can look at these features here in this section to see these are options to do changing the name, right? Changing the name here, toggle business unit. And I'm basically saying, show or do not show that column, the one that I'm on, DT1. And so these are hard-coded referenced again here. So just be careful when you do that. One thing I can notice when I did toggle on my show hide currency is that I don't love the fact that it's left aligned here. So we're going to quickly just add a new class to that. And what I want to do is I want to be able to add a button click to that. So in order to allow that like clicking feature, we go down into the columns. And since this is a feature for the columns, we're going to put this class called info icon. And I'm basically saying align me center and add a cursor of a pointer. Okay, well, what does that look like? If I go back to my preview and I turn my currency on, it's not happening because I haven't assigned that class to it yet. So quickly run back into our builder, find our currency icon here, and we're going to add the class of info icon right there. And for purposes of this, I'm just going to put center. Why not? And submit my changes. And when I come back and I show my currency, I now have it centered here. But I also want, do you see how the pointer has changed? Okay, the pointer works, but it's not doing anything. So our next step is to actually add some custom code to this. And what we're going to do is go in and to our integration. And I want to point out that we're not going to use the template for the builder here. We're actually just going to paste code. So once you figure out what you want to do, this is similar to like where we're hard keying right here. I'm saying when we click this info icon, so I gave it a class, and that's the difference. I said that button is called info class. I can identify it by a class name. When it's clicked, I want to get some data. I want to say, what is it that I want? I want the currency, and I'm going to give a message. And right now I'm just alerting it, but you could have it run a FileMaker script. You could have it trigger something else. But let's go see what that button actually does. So toggling back on my currency, and I come over here, and if I hit the euro, I see you selected the euro icon. If I click the $, you selected the US icon. So it can read what you clicked and pass back information. And I can obviously show or hide that button. So if there's reasons to do this and adding an icon, it's pretty easy to be able to say, well, I want just to see the euro icon or change these things. And you could do more formatting with them. But that's how you can add an icon and then add a button to an icon to do something with it. The options are kind of limitless with that. All right, speaking of icons and buttons, we're almost done. We're going to add another group here, and we're going to add a copy button. So when we're looking at this page, we can actually copy the results and put them into Excel or some other external application. So the first thing we need to do, though, now is we need to add another library. So when we go into our libraries, we have to be able to tell DataTables that we want to use a function to take the copy function and do something with it. So this is the code that we need. It's for the buttons application, but we're saying we want the HTML5 options. And when we do that, nothing here really happens because we haven't told it what to do. So where do we go do that? Again, we're gonna follow along and add a new collection of buttons. And all we're gonna do is add the copy icon here to allow the user to do that. So come into your JS function and let's go back down. So we're in the buttons area and we had a collection for options. And so after this collection right here, we are going to add another collection. So what we do, let me just copy this in for you guys. And we are going to say here, we're extending the copy HTML5 action, and we're going to give it the text of a copy icon. Remember, because we have Font Awesome installed already, we're giving it the class name of my collection. So I want it to continue to have that. No title, and I'll explain that in a minute. But export options is what we're also saying. When we use this export feature, which is the copy feature, I'm telling it I only want the visible columns to go through. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Under preview, I have the original collection, the second collection we did, and now my collection is really just an icon. All I did was force it to be a collection, and inside I said the button I want it to be is drawing as an icon, and copying that. So if I hit this button, you can see that it's hovering, and I hit copy, and it tells me 350 rows are copied to the clipboard. That's because I'm showing all of my visible data. If I were to open Excel, I would be able to paste data now right here. So let's go ahead and paste. And I have this little feature and headers here just to show you what we want, but it pasted the data that I had in FileMaker. So let's bring that back down. And there we go. Right now, we are at a very good stopping point. We've got some new buttons here. They're formatted correctly. The last part of this conditional formatting with graphics is going to just take a couple more steps. We're going to add an image to this report to show you how you can personalize it for your clients. We're going to add some default sort orders, row grouping, and a select row feature, just to show you that the power of those things in combination with the copy and these other buttons that we created can really drive your user interface and the user experience for your customers to get reports that they want natively, easily, without asking a developer to create more work for them. So stick with me. We're going to come up with the last session on graphics, and we're almost done to have our full report finalized.